have mercy on us. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today we're going to be talking about the Orthodox Saints of the British Isles. A major shout out to the YouTube channel Orthodox Audio Labs. They are linked in the video title, Orthodox Audio Labs. You click their @ and it should take you to their YouTube channel. Major appreciation for them sponsoring today's stream, in which we're going to be covering many saints that some of you may or may not have heard of. Now, generally speaking, I've done a few other sponsored streams in this general vicinity. So we did a sponsored stream on the history of the Celtic peoples. So you can't talk about the British Isles without having an understanding of the British peoples. This is before the Anglo-Saxon conquest. And there we did a whole, I think it's almost 3 hours. We did a stream on the Celtic peoples, give or take for dates, because dates are going to be very prominent in today's conversation. General consensus among scholars is about 500 BC is when the Celtic people made their way to the British Isles. Of course, you have the Picts, the Scots, the Irish, the Britons. So we're not going to be discussing that too much. But we also did one on Saint Alfred the Great, king of the Saxons. We're not going to be talking about him so much either, because we did a whole stream, which I believe was also about 3 hours, covering King Alfred the Great. So we're not going to be discussing his life too much. And then my patron saint, who I also did, I think it was close to another 3 hour stream on St. Patrick of Ireland, obviously one of the most prominent and famous, especially due to the celebration of St. Patrick's Day in America, one of the most famous saints from the British Isles. And we're not going to be talking about him too much. Again, I got into really minute details and nuances about his life and different scholastic theories, because there are dates in which are missing. So refer back to that stream as well. I did a whole stream. This was this was right around St. Patrick's Day of this year, 2024. So we're not going to be talking much about St. Patrick either. Today's stream, we're really going to be talking about Orthodox saints that are still venerated in the Orthodox Church before the Norman Conquest. And so I've mentioned before, three important battles maybe you want to remember is the Battle of Edington. This is the battle in which King Alfred won, the defeat of the Vikings by the Anglo-Saxons, and then, of course, the Battle of Hastings. This is when William the Conqueror, the Viking French Normans, came and defeated the Anglo-Saxons. And it was after the Norman Conquest in which the alignment with the Catholic Church, and the Battle of Hastings is 1066. Of course, if you're familiar with church history, the Great Schism is 1054. So it's right around that period of time that we have the Great Schism, and then people who are venerated maybe in the Catholic Church, not so much venerated in the Orthodox Church after the Norman Conquest. So today we're really focusing on the first person to bring, and I actually had this question. I was curious how many people would be able to answer that. I know some of you, because I already see, I believe Richard Bede is here. He's from the UK. I know we got a lot of Irish folks as well, but according to church legend, according to church teachings, who was the first person to bring Christianity to the British Isles? I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to answer right away. I want to see what you guys have to say. But who was, according to tradition, the first person to bring the Christian faith to the British Isles? We'll see how many of you guys get that right. It might be a surprising answer to some people. So we're going to really begin with the bringing of the faith, and then all these saints that are really incredible stories, lives of the saints. And so the way that today's stream is structured, there's not really a big monologue. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of details in regards to unique attributes of sort of Orthodox saints from the British Isles. You know, Ireland was known as the land of scholars and saints. Talk a little bit about that, give you a quick little timeline of British church history, again, and where the Orthodox faith and where we have various saints from the British Isles. And then really, we're just going to be getting into, there we go. It looks like the one to answer correctly is, of course, Dr. Crispy Rothschild. So there we go. Anon says it. So actually, according to church tradition, the person that brought the Christian faith to the British Isles is Joseph of Arimathea. If you guys are familiar, Joseph of Arimathea is who gives the shroud to Christ and takes him down from the cross and puts him in his grave, the tomb. And according to tradition, Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy man who did trading, and he had already gone to Britain for tin. So there was a significant amount of tin, especially in the ancient period, and they were getting it from the British Isles, particularly southern England. And from what we understand, according to the tradition of the saints and what's been told, he had been to Britain. Now he goes back to the Holy Land. He's there during the crucifixion of Christ. And we're told that he goes back to Britain towards the end of his life. And what I have is, generally speaking, we don't have a specific date, but potentially around 37 AD to 63 AD, somewhere in there, that he goes back to Britain and brings the Christian faith. Now, I am well aware that secular scholars have debated this because they don't have historical evidence. And I've seen academic scholars date the arrival of Christianity even later than Tertullian and Origen, who we have second centuries writings in which they already recognized that Christianity was already present on the British Isles. So we know that, at least according to the church writings, that they believed that the faith was already present in the British Isles by the end of the first century. And according to tradition, it is Joseph of Arimathea, and it's believed that he brought little bottles of Christ's blood and sweat that he gathered during the crucifixion to England, or the British Isles, because England hadn't existed yet, if you know what I mean. And according to tradition, he also brought the chalice cup from the Last Supper. And this is what's going to connect with the Arthurian mythology of the Holy, finding the Holy Grail, right? The cup that Christ had at the Last Supper. So according to tradition, this is why that myth, maybe it wasn't a myth, maybe it was true history, we don't know, but this is why the Arthur legends and the Holy Grail are so important to the British Isles, because it's believed that Joseph of Arimathea actually brought the cup from the Last Supper to this place. So very interesting stuff. Now, we're going to be talking about many saints that you may or may not have heard of. I saw people already talking in the chat, naming different saints. And if you have a saint that you would like me to address, feel free to send in a super chat, Streamlabs, Dono Chat, YouTube. If you're really feeling generous, give some COTEL Crew memberships tonight. But if you have a particular saint, let me know, and I'll try to look up their live and maybe read a little bit about them. I already have a handful of saints. I mean, more than a handful. I have a whole page that I found of somebody in Britain who is Orthodox Christian, who's made a website, I believe it was from 2014, listing many saints that I'm sure for the vast majority of the audience, especially if you're not from the British Isles, you probably hadn't heard of. So I want to introduce some of these. For example, how many of you have even heard of St. Brendan the Seafarer? Probably not many. Well, St. Brendan the Seafarer is believed that he was sailing west with a handful of other monastics, other men. It's debated about how many, somewhere between 40 to 14. Nobody really knows for sure. But it's said that he discovered Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and even made his way to Newfoundland, Canada, making him potentially one of the earliest recorders of reaching North America. How many people have heard of that? Well, he's actually an Orthodox saint from the British Isles. And so we're going to read a little bit about St. Brendan. Some of you probably heard of St. Alban. He's the first martyr of Britain, and his story is incredible. We're going to read it in more detail, but he was a non-Christian who apparently a Christian priest was present during the Diocletian persecution, and he housed him in his house, and he was amazed by his teachings and the theology and wanted to become a Christian, and according to tradition was baptized by this priest. But when the Roman soldiers came to look for the priest that they wanted to kill, St. Alban actually put on his vestments and claimed to be the priest to spare the life of that man. And when he was presented in front of his persecutor, they kept asking him what family he came from. He just kept saying, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. What's it to you? And they killed him right then and there. And so he's actually the first martyr of the British Isles, St. Alban. We'll be reading about his life. St. Aristobulus, he's the bringer of orthodoxy, traditionally speaking. And he is actually the brother of the apostle Barnabas. How many of you guys knew that St. Aristobulus is the brother to an apostle and is one of the very important saints of the British Isles? We're going to be reading about him as well. St. Bertram, the king and hermit. Fascinating story. Don't know if you guys are familiar. Now, Bertram is the maiden name of my mother, and so I have a family history. So when I found there's a St. Bertram, oh, I got to click on that. Well, he was a king who actually forfeited his crown, gave the kingdom to his son, and became a hermit for the rest of his life. We'll be reading a little bit about him as well. Of course, you can't mention church history without talking about the Venerable Bede. So I'm sure all the English people are already familiar, but the Venerable Bede is considered the father of English history, and he wrote the ultimate history describing and putting together a chronological timeline of many of the saints that we'll be discussing today. And so just wanted to, again, give you a quick introduction. I don't have much of a monologue. I really want to start getting into reading the lives of the saints and play you guys a couple videos from, again, today's sponsor, Orthodox Audio Labs, over on YouTube. Give them a subscription. Go over there, subscribe to their channel. I saw somebody talking about there needs to be an audio book of all the lives of the British Isles saints. And he's actually trying to do that to a degree. I'm going to play a few of his videos. We're not going to play too many because some of them they're like 20 some minutes long, and it's just audio. Very well done, though. I'm actually very impressed by the quality. And so shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs. Thank you very much for sponsoring today's stream. Really appreciate you. Siege D throws in $2, says, is Michael a saint or archangel or both? Yes. Archangel Michael is a saint, but not maybe, I mean, we wouldn't call him Saint Michael. We'd call him Archangel Michael, but you can pray for his intercession. He can pray for you. Saints are usually humans, and Archangel Michael is a noetic entity, is an angel. So is he venerated as a saint? I mean, I guess you can say so to a degree, but saints typically are historical people that lived. But yes, we definitely venerate Archangel Michael, and he can intercede for you if you so choose. So we're going to be talking about, again, tons of different people. Thank you so much, Siege D, for the $2 super chat. And looks like Sean over on Streamlabs sent in $2. Let me pull that up real quick. He said, I live in Folkestone. We have the relics of St. Eanswida of Folkestone, 7th century, in an Anglican parish here. She created the first women's monastery in England. St. Piran of Cornwall is another cool English saint. Well, I plan on actually speaking about both of them today, Sean. So once I can get through the sort of just introducing some of the themes, the timeline and stuff like that today, I'm going to get straight into just reading the lives of various saints, introducing you guys to various British Isle Saints. And again, if you have particular ones you would like me to look up that maybe don't have planned to read about, feel free to send in a super chat. Would really appreciate that. And so before we even get into anything, we might as well just do some quick housekeeping. And I just want to say, if you guys appreciate this work, please support my channel. I know that times are tough, and I really don't want to sound like I'm begging for anything, but even engagement with the channel and support, website support, super chats, they've been down considerably, let's say the last month and a half. And of course, I always make free content, but if you would like to support, if you're in a position to, please support the stream with super chats or becoming a website member. I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you'd like to become a website member, again, you can go over to davidpatrickcarey.com/register. And we got 3 different types of memberships. I have a video for members coming soon on Christian persecution. My goal is to provide a historical overview and also why Christians are still the most persecuted religion in the world today. And I think I'm going to make the first half of that available on YouTube. So you guys will be able to check it out and you'll kind of get a feel for what some of these members videos are like. But anything that may rub up against the TOS on YouTube goes onto the website. So if you'd like to see some content that you're not going to catch on YouTube, go to the website, subscribe. I'd greatly, greatly appreciate that. And also, if anybody wants to sign up for a one-on-one session, you can do so with this link right here. Would greatly appreciate that as well. We can talk about any topic your heart desires. Also, if you would like to sponsor a stream, we have, again, today's sponsor stream by Orthodox Audio Labs, who is very much interested in the history of Orthodoxy in the British Isles. Again, he has a whole playlist we're going to be looking at and just introducing you guys to. That if you would like to support his work, go over there. I'm sure he would absolutely love if you guys subscribed and engaged with some of his content, because he is doing a lot of hard work and putting out audio information on various saints. Connacht Writer says for $2.49, Saint Ciaran of Clonmacnoise and his holy cow. I believe he's actually on the list, so I will absolutely read him for Connacht Writer. Thank you very much, brother. So again, you guys can direct which saints we're going to look up as long as I can find information. But I will, due to Connacht Writer's request, I will absolutely read about him. And Tapio just gifted a COTEL Crew membership. Thank you very much, Tapio, for your support. Thank you very much, Connacht Writer, for your support. Siege D, Sean, thank you guys very, very much for your support. I truly appreciate that. So anyways, if you also have a topic you would like me to do a sponsored stream on, you can do so with this link right here. I'll reach out to you after you purchase and get a little bit more clarification on maybe what ideas and topics you had in mind. So you can do that with that link there. And then also, guys, you've probably caught some of my content talking about Orthodox eschatology, the prophecies of the saints. And if you'd like to have access to some of that information, that is all available at a website called eschatonvigil.org. eschatonvigil.org. And they now have memberships available to have access to thousands of prophecies you can't get anywhere else. So if you would like to have access to that, please check out eschatonvigil.org. It's an Orthodox non-for-profit. It's a group that I am affiliated with and absolutely support what they're trying to do and to make many things that are only in Russian and Greek available to the English world. And it is already the ultimate source on prophecies and eschatology in English for Orthodox listeners. So please check out the eschatonvigil.org if you're interested in that. And then last thing, if you guys are in the market for some Orthodox items, check out orthodoxdepot.com. They got icons, prayer ropes, incense, whatever it is you may be looking for, necklaces, and use promo code COTEL. You'll be able to help me out as well as a good Orthodox company here in the Midwest. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. And it looked like we had another gifting of some memberships. Thank you so much. Austin DeTulio just gifted 5 COTEL Crew memberships. Thank you very, very much, brother, for that generous support. I truly, truly do appreciate it. I'm sure the people in the chat do as well. So thank you very much, Austin DeTulio. Okay, so to get started, I had a few points that I wrote down that I want to kind of go over with you guys and just introduce the general topic and timeline and theme for everything so we can be on the same page before we start reading some of the lives of the saints, because some things may come back up and then we can always refer back. First thing that I want to bring up is a general timeline of British or Christian history in the British Isles. And I broke it down into a few different sections. So the first section I titled is the early Christian history in England or British Isles from the 1st century to the 5th century. This is before the Anglo-Saxons arrive. So I broke it up. The first, let's say, 5 centuries, then the Anglo-Saxon period, and then the Norman Conquest, and then we have the Protestant Reformation. And our conversation today is really just focusing on the first 9 centuries. The first 9 centuries are where we have a shared Orthodox heritage with many people from the British Isles. And we just got another super chat. Shout out to Orthodox Boomer. Grandmother throws in $10. Thank you so much, Alexandria. And shout out to unionofallicons.com. If you're interested in icons, support one of our beautiful Orthodox sisters in the community, Alexandria and her husband's company, Union of All Icons. They make beautiful, beautiful icons. I have 2 of them, the Transfiguration and St. Patrick of Ireland, the British Isle saint. And she said, St. Kevin of Glendalough, right after I read his life, sent me a blackbird. Check out Union of All Icons for St. Patrick. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Alexandria. And then Connacht Writer throws in another $2.50 and says, cheers, brother. Pronounce St. Kieran. Irish name. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you very much, Connacht Writer, for the support. Thank you very much, Alexandria. Really appreciate that. So here's a general timeline. I want to get through it real quick because most of today's stream, I just want to be reading about the lives of the saints. So the first thing that I have is 1st century. So according to tradition, Christianity is brought to the British Isles by Joseph of Arimathea, the man who took Christ down from the cross and put the shroud over him. And he is said to have arrived in Glastonbury. The amount of men is debated. What I saw multiple times from sources was about 11 men traveled with him from the Mediterranean, from the Holy Land to Britain. And the reason why he went to Britain, because many of the apostles were commissioned to go to different parts of the world. Obviously, St. Thomas goes to India. Many people go to different parts of Northern Africa, the Mediterranean. But Joseph of Arimathea goes all the way to the British Isles. And it's believed, as I said earlier, because he traded tin and he had been there before Christ's crucifixion. And so he went back because of his familiarity with the place and potentially the people. And so we, according to tradition, believe that Joseph of Arimathea was actually the first person to bring the faith. And so if you look up secular historians, yes, they debate this because they don't have historical evidence. The evidence for it is our church tradition, who claims that this was what transpired. So that's 1st century, right? As I said, that's somewhere between the year 37 and 63, 1st century AD. So right after the life of Christ. 2nd century, I found that Tertullian and Origen both mention Britain, indicating that the faith had already taken root by that time, despite looking at Wikipedia and other places which question when exactly Christianity arose. Some argued it was more in the 300s, mid 200s, but by the 2nd century, we already have Tertullian and Origen saying that the faith is present within the British Isles. I keep seeing this date 209. Now we're talking about the martyrdom of St. Alban. I've seen multiple dates. The one that I found from Orthodox sources is 304. His martyrdom occurred in 304, which would have been 4th century. But I found a couple websites who argue that it was 209. So there's almost 100-year gap in speculative dates regarding the martyrdom of St. Alban. Again, I talked to you about him. He's the first martyr of the British Isles. He actually was a non-Christian, housed a priest. When the Diocletian persecution came and the Roman soldiers wanted to kill the priest, he impersonated him, and he actually went to his death, being a faithful convert to the faith to preserve this, the anonymity of this priest. So is it 209? Is it 304? I'm not sure. Orthodox Wiki doesn't really give you a date. So I'm not sure. We can go with 304 because I saw a handful of Orthodox sites say that, but I've also seen a handful of sites say 209. Just throwing that out there. By the 4th century, so the 300s, we have the Edict of Milan in 313. Now, if you're familiar with St. Constantine, Emperor Constantine, the battle at the Milvian Bridge, right? This is the defining point in Roman history in which after this, the Christians rise. The battle of the Milvian Bridge is when Constantine already saw his dream that he will win by elevating Christ. He puts the Chi-Rho on the shields of the Roman soldiers, and they defeat the pagan Romans at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. That's 312. 313 AD, we have the Edict of Milan, which now makes Christianity legalized, and then obviously becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire. So that's 313. 314, we have bishops of Britain at the Council of Arles, indicating an established Christian presence and hierarchy. By the end of the 4th century, we have Roman legions withdrawing from Britain, leading to a decline in organized Roman administration and also affecting the church as well. Now, when the Romans withdraw, this is where Londondom, the city of London, actually really kind of falls apart. That hardly anybody lives there, and it's not till later that London sort of rises. And that was even connected. The rise of London was connected with our conversation on Alfred the Great and his conquest of that region. So that's the first section there, the first 4 centuries to 5 centuries. Then you have the Anglo-Saxon period from really the 5th century to the 9th century. And this is where the vast majority of our saints today are going to come from. 5th and 6th centuries, we have the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, who are largely pagan. Christianity persists in pockets within the British Isles, particularly in the western parts of Britain and among the Britons in Wales and Cornwall. And so monasteries are huge for preserving the faith during this period. And this is really why the Western British Isles, so places like Ireland specifically, the land of saints and scholars, gets that reputation. And so 597 AD, we got St. Augustine of Canterbury, who we're going to read about today, is sent by Pope Gregory the Great to convert the Anglo-Saxons. And he is actually successful. St. Augustine of Canterbury baptizes King Ethelbert of Kent, leading to the establishment of the See of Canterbury. That's 597. And so we're going to read a little bit about St. Augustine here later. And then 604, we have the foundation of the Bishopric of Rochester and the Bishopric of London, 604. 664, the Synod of Whitby. You may have heard of this. It decides the English church will follow Roman rather than Celtic practices, because during this period before the Synod of Whitby, there were different customs and traditions that were different. Some were more Roman oriented. And again, this is before the schism, and even Pope Gregory the Great is still recognized as a saint within the Orthodox Church. But the Synod of Whitby decides to sort of do away with some of the Celtic traditions in favor of the Roman traditions to give it more holistic and greater unity to the church within the British Isles. And then 668 to 690, Archbishop Theodore of Tarsus. How many of you heard of Theodore of Tarsus? Tarsus, Paul of Tarsus, Saul. Yes, the Apostle Paul. We have an Archbishop Theodore, a Greek, who actually becomes the Archbishop, and he reorganizes the church in a more structured system. That's 668 to 690. Then we have, again, the Viking invasions and Dane law. That's 793. The Viking raid in Lindisfarne makes the beginning of the Viking Age, which brings significant turmoil to Christian communities. That's 793. 865, the Great Heathen Army invades England. This touches on our previous stream in regard to the life of Saint King Alfred the Great, a wonderful, great man, one of the better kings. He's the only king with the epithet the Great for England. Really sets the stage for England to become, or Britain to become unified and create England. So 865, the Great Heathen Army invades England, leading to the establishment of the Dane law in the east and north of England. This is the Dane law is the agreement that King Alfred makes of King of Wessex with some of the Vikings, so that they control basically parts. They have their own Viking states in the eastern section of what we would consider England. Eventually, they're defeated by his children, Alfred the Great. So 878, Alfred the Great defeats the Vikings at the Battle of Edington, leading to the Treaty of Wedmore and the Christianization of Guthrum and his followers. We covered all that in the stream on Alfred the Great. And then we have the Norman Conquest. And this is where we're not really going to have any saints after 1066. This is when William the Conqueror, the King of Normandy, comes and defeats the Anglo-Saxons. Huge pivotal point in British Isle history. And so Norman conquest of England, William the Conqueror supports the reorganization of the church, including the appointment of Norman bishops and the construction of Romanesque cathedrals. This is where, again, post-schism, and it becomes much more Catholic than a shared Orthodox heritage. 1070 to 1080, Archbishop Lanfranc reforms the English church, aligning it more closely with the continental practices in the papacy. So that 11th century, we have the Norman conquest, and then it realigns itself with the papacy post-schism. And of course, eventually you have the Protestant Reformation, King Henry VIII, the Anglican Church, Church of England, all that stuff, which of course we're not going to have too much of a shared history. Now, a handful of saints that are incredibly important. So if you remember a few, you need to remember St. Alban. Again, the first martyr. Again, is it 209? Is it 304? We're not sure. Feast day is June 22nd, and he's considered the first British Christian martyr, according to tradition. As I told you, he sheltered the priest, and he was executed in the Roman town of Verlamium, modern-day St. Albans. Makes sense. Of course, St. Patrick, my patron saint, who we're not going to be reading much about today, just because I have a whole stream dedicated to him being my patron saint. But his feast day is March 17th, the day that he died. And he was, again, born in Britain. Maybe he was born on the continent. We discussed that in the stream. But he's the patron saint of Ireland. And he was captured by Irish pirates as a young man, escaped, later returned to Ireland as a missionary, playing a crucial role in the Christianization of the island. Then we have St. David of Wales, who we're going to be reading about today. So some of you probably are familiar. If you're not, very important saint, dates 500 to 589, 500 to 589, 6th century. And he was a prominent Welsh bishop and missionary. St. David founded several monasteries and churches, and he is the patron saint of Wales and was known for his ascetic lifestyle and teachings. We're going to be reading more about him as well. St. Aidan of Lindisfarne, if you're not familiar with him, a very important saint as well. St. Aidan taught multiple people who are also going to be saints and martyrs in our story today as we go over some of the lives. His feast day is August 31st, and he was an Irish monk as well from Ionia. And we're going to be talking about St. Columba and the monasteries he founds in converting the Scots and the Picts in Scotland. And this is part of a unique Irish tradition, too, we'll talk about. Part of the difference between the Celtic and the Roman practices is Celtic monastics, they often would exile themselves voluntarily from their homeland. So they would leave to go start a monastery, start a community somewhere else to never come back again. And that's going to play when we talk about St. Columba. But St. Aidan of Lindisfarne, again, August 31st is his feast day. Irish monk from Ionia who became the first bishop of Lindisfarne. He played a key role in the Christianization of Northumbria and was known for his missionary work and dedication to education and charity. And he's, again, his name will come up multiple times when we read various lives of the saints. And of course, St. Cuthbert, 634 to 687 AD, feast days March 20th, and he was a monk and bishop associated with Lindisfarne as well. Lindisfarne becomes one of the centers of high education during this period. Again, it's going to come up multiple times during the stories of the lives of the saints. St. Cuthbert is known for his piety, his miracles, and his pastoral care. His relics became a major pilgrimage site. And then some of the unique dimensions of Christianity within the British Isles. Based on my research, I wrote down a few. First one is missionary work and conversion efforts. So early missionaries, the initial period when Christianity was spreading through the British Isles can be attributed to early missionaries who are part of an undivided Christian church. Figures such as St. Patrick of Ireland, St. Columba of Scotland, St. Augustine of Canterbury and England were pivotal in converting their local populations to Christianity. And then monastic missionaries too. Monastic communities, particularly those of the Celtic Christian tradition, played a crucial role in missionary work. Monasteries like Iona, established by St. Columba, served as centers of evangelization and higher learning. And then monasticism, generally speaking, monastic foundations, I wrote that the British Isles saw the establishment of numerous monasteries that adhered to the monastic traditions of the broader Orthodox Christian world. These monasteries became centers of learning, spirituality, missionary activity, and notable examples would include Lindisfarne, Iona, and Glastonbury. And then Celtic monasticism. The Celtic monastic tradition had its own distinct practices, as I said, such as a strong emphasis on asceticism, and as well as voluntary pilgrimage and voluntary exile and unique liturgical customs. However, it remained in communion with the broader Christian church until the Synod of Whitby, which we said 664, which aligned the practices of the English church with the Roman customs. And then we have the cultural and educational contributions. I wrote scriptoria and learning. Monasteries in the British Isles were renowned for their scriptoria, where monks copied and illuminated manuscripts. Lindisfarne specifically has an incredible reputation for illuminated manuscripts in higher education during this period. And this is, again, part of why Ireland is the land of scholars and saints. We even talked a little bit about John Scotus Erigena, the Irishman who is the sort of court philosopher for the Carolingian Empire. Now, the Carolingian Empire certainly isn't Orthodox, and neither is John Scotus Erigena, who is a Neoplatonist, but in the Carolingian Empire, he was one of the only people that could translate both Greek and Latin, and he was a native Irishman. And so it highlights the depth of learning that was occurring in the British Isles at this time. They were really the preservers of the ability to read and translate Greek in many respects. So this helped preserve Christian texts and contributed to the spread of Christian learning. The Book of Kells and the Lindisfarne Gospels are prime examples of this cultural heritage. And then the synods and councils, various synods such as the Synod of Whitby in 664 played a critical role in shaping the religious practices and doctrines in the British Isles, ensuring they remain consistent with the broader Christian world. And then reputation of Orthodox Christianity in the British Isles. This is a few of the things that I wrote down. Is religious unity and diversity, unity with the Christian world. Before the Great Schism, the British Isles were part of the unified Christian Orthodox Catholic Church. This meant that the practices, doctrines, and ecclesiastical structure were aligned with those in the rest of Christendom. And then Celtic and Roman traditions, there are a notable interplay, as I said, between Celtic and Roman traditions, especially before the Synod of Whitby. This syncretism enriched the religious life of the British Isles, bringing diverse and unique liturgical practices and theological perspectives that can't be found in the continent or even in the Mediterranean. That it does have a unique flavor of orthodoxy in the British Isles due to this mixture between Roman and Celtic traditions. And then the veneration of saints, local saints, many British saints such as St. Alban, St. David, St. Cuthbert, St. Aidan were venerated and held in very high regard. Their lives and deeds became integral parts of local Christian heritage. And pilgrimage sites, relics of saints and monastic sites became important pilgrimage destinations, contributing to the spiritual and economic life of the region. Ecclesiastical structure and influence, bishops and monastic leaders, influential bishops, we'll be talking about some today, such as Archbishop Augustine of Canterbury. And monastic leaders played pivotal roles in both religious and secular affairs, like Archbishop Theodore of Tarsus, significantly contributing to the reorganization of the English church. Christian kings and nobility, this is something else that we're going to see. We have multiple kings who are also saints for their defense of Christianity and their martyrdom in battle, some of which, as we said, St. Bertram, king and hermit. We have an example of a king who forfeits his kingdom to become a Christian hermit. We're going to read about his life as well. but many Anglo-Saxon and Celtic kings converted to Christianity, integrating Christian principles into their rule and promoting the faith among their subjects. This alliance between the church and the monarchy strengthened the church's influence. Those are some of the main points that I wanted to address before we dive deeper into the stream today. So now I really want to show you guys some of the stuff that I have lined up and more the educational dimension of this. And we're going to read the lives of the saints. So smash that like, guys. Hope you will enjoy the stream. We got a super chat from Justin Henley. Throws in $5 over on the Dono chat and says, cheers and prayers for all you do, champ. Well, thank you very much, Justin Henley, for the support. I truly appreciate that, my brother. God bless you and yours. And so let me pull up some of these sources that I want to read from today. Okay, so this is the site where this is a great site. I'm going to share this link with you guys right now. So this site right here has tons of saints and their lives. And I'm going to use this one and why, and it doesn't have all the saints. As you can see, I saw one priest, Orthodox priest in Britain, say that it's the land of 10,000 saints. And he said, that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but there are thousands of saints from the British Isles, Orthodox saints that are still venerated. Most people just aren't familiar with. Here is a few of them. And so we're going to go through, and the reason why I'm using this website is because it's one of the only websites that also is accompanied with pictures. So, this one isn't one in particular, but some of them have unique pictures from sites and things like that. So again, this unique icon right here. So this is St. Brendan the Seafarer. We're going to be reading about him, but this site has a lot of good information. I double checked a lot of the things that it said with other sources. Seemed to be a really good site. Again, last it was uploaded was September 3rd, 2014. And so we're going to be using this site, but also I have the list of British Isles saints from Ortho Wiki. Again, it only has 69, so it doesn't have everybody. But if maybe you guys request a saint and they're not on here, at least over on Orthodox Wiki, we might be able to find them. If not, I can do an internet search to try to find some of them. And so here is a bit of a timeline. And again, this is just way more encompassing and way more detailed, but I wanted to share it with you guys. This is a timeline of Orthodoxy in the British Isles. And this is a good link. Again, I'm not going to go over it. I don't want to spend all day going on the nuance of the history. I gave you a quick overview that's important, but here is that. Oh, and I didn't share the link. This is the website that I want to show you guys with all the we'll be reading from today. So let me post that in here as well. And so where I wanted to begin our conversation was actually the bringing of Orthodoxy to England. And so we're going to be reading first about Joseph of Arimathea in Glastonbury. I want to read this article to you guys. It's not very long at all, so no worries there. And then here is the YouTube channel, Orthodox Audio Labs, our sponsor for today's stream. Orthodox Audio Labs, they got 440 subscribers. So, guys, we got to get those numbers up. I'll subscribe right now. And so you guys go over and subscribe as well. I'm going to be playing just a few of their videos so you can get a feel for their audio visualizations of various British Isle saints. But we're just going to play some of the shorter ones because some of them, like St. Edwin, the King Martyr of Northumbria, great saint and life, but it's 21 minutes long. And I don't want to bore you guys too much today. So we're going to play a few of Orthodox Audio Labs videos on British Isle saints. And I have, if you guys want, it was really hard to find YouTube content related to Orthodox saints in the British Isles. And the only thing I found was Trisargion Films has two videos, one on St. David of Wales that we could play. It's 14 minutes. If you guys want, let me know. If you would rather me just read about his life or we can watch this video, we can do that. And then they also have one on St. Cuthbert of Lindisfarne, and that's 1151. So if you want to play those videos, we can. Let me know in the chat, and I can play those play those videos, or we can just read them because I have those saints also. I have their biographies, and we can just go over it. So let me know what you guys prefer. You guys can kind of dictate today's stream, if you will. So first thing I want to do is talk about Joseph of Arimathea. So according to tradition, Joseph of Arimathea is, according to one legend, said to have landed on a boat in Weariall Hill, which is located on the outskirts of Glastonbury town, and again underlines the fact that in the past times the area around Glastonbury flooded, making certain areas accessible only by small boat at certain times of the year. This also supports the belief that the area of the country was what some legends refer to as the Isles of Avalon. Once he arrived in the area, it is believed that we would consider him a saint, St. Joseph of Arimathea built a church out of wattle and daub, which stood next to or on the site of the what is now called the Lady Chapel on the grounds of Glastonbury Abbey. In AD 1184, a fire destroyed the original church, which was described by some as the holiest earth in all of England, and was often even the place that pilgrims traveled to. The church was still standing when the Saxons entered into Somerset during the 7th century and was being used by Celtic monks. It is believed that it officially became a Benedictine monastery in AD 673. The abbey was rebuilt by King Ian of Wessex during AD 720, 10 years after the war with the Britons of Cornwall. It is believed by some that Joseph of Arimathea, a tin trader who came to the west country of Mendip, lead in Cornish tin, actually brought the boy Jesus to Glastonbury, his nephew, and then returned here later to spread the word of Christianity after the death of Jesus, starting in Glastonbury and bringing with him the sacred chalice used at the Last Supper, or the chalice holding his blood and sweat. This particular trip is said to have been the inspiration for William Blake's poem Jerusalem, which begins, "And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green?" Other legends tell that Joseph brought the Virgin Mary, the Holy Theotokos, mother of Jesus, with him upon his return visit. Now, I do not find this to be church tradition. So I was trying to see, what does the Orthodox Church say? Does the Orthodox Church say that the Theotokos went with Joseph of Arimathea to Britain? And I could not find a confirmation on that. It seems to be more of a British Isle legend that this may or may not have happened. I could not find an Orthodox verification of that. And so Joseph of Arimathea, who took Jesus' body down from the cross and placed it in his sepulcher, is said to have returned to Britain some years later, around 73 or 37 to 63 AD, bringing the Christian message with him. With 11 followers, he made his way to Glastonbury, wishing to be among the friendly and influential Druids he had met during his earlier visits. On arrival, he stuck his wood staff into the ground and immediately took root and blossomed as a young tree. He took this as a divine sign that he had reached his journey's end. This tree is now immortalized as the Holy Thorn, or the Glastonbury Thorn, which has the special attribute of blossoming twice a year, in the spring and at Christmas time. I love that. So around Pascha and around Christmas, this tree blossoms. So beautiful. Joseph of Arimathea was alleged to have brought the chalice cup of the Last Supper with him, as well as 2 crutes containing the blood and sweat of Christ. Although the latter 2 are said to have been buried with him in his Glastonbury grave, the whereabouts of the chalice cup was and still remains unknown, though some commentators have said that it was 2 buried with Joseph of Arimathea. It has become entangled in myth and is identified as the Holy Grail of the Ethereum fame. The local king Arviragus gave Joseph of Arimathea and his disciples 12 hides of land, a hide being a medieval measure of land equal to the area that could be tilled with 1 plow in a year. On this land, they built their wattle and daub church dedicated to the Virgin Mary, which has its traditional site as the location of the Lady Chapel within the abbey. It had the name Vetusta Ecclesia, or Old Church, and though dilapidated in later years, did not disappear until a tragic fire swept through the abbey on the night of May 25th, 1184. The legend continued in the century following Joseph of Arimathea's arrival. Pope Eleutherius, at the request of King Lucius Arviragus' grandson, sent two emissaries, Daruvian and Fagin, to invigorate the work of Glastonbury. These two are credited with the foundation of the abbey, though other accounts say that it was founded in the 5th century by St. Patrick, who was the abbot at Glastonbury before leaving to convert the Irish people to Christianity. The patron saint of Wales, St. David, is said to have traveled to Glastonbury at a later date, accompanied by 7 bishops to dedicate the old church, but was warned in a dream that the Lord had already done so. Instead, David added another church and dedicated that one. As far as it is known, the Celtic Benedictine monks did not tell the Saxons who had originally built the church. Maybe they did not know or thought it was best not to tell. It has been assumed by some that maybe the abbey had always had some form of religious significance. The connection between the old church site, the legend of Joseph of Arimathea, and that of Jesus visiting England may be based upon the knowledge that the Saxons had the legend that told of the church not built of man, but prepared by God himself. So that's a little bit of the sort of legend, tradition, story of the bringing of Christianity to the British Isles. And so now from there, I want to turn back to our original page and start reading, because that's really the point of today's stream, just reading about the lives of various saints. So again, if you guys have a particular saint you'd like me to look into, feel free to send in a super chat, and I will do that. I know so far we have one request, St. Kieran by Connacht Writer, but we got another super chat over on the Streamlabs, came in from Anaxicor, and Anaxicor said, "Hi, DPH. I wrote to you not too long, about 2 years ago. Well, it's a little bit of a long time ago, but feeling isolated in the faith, I've come to my local Greek Orthodox church in Newcastle for a year and have been chrismated with the name Elias. God bless you, and I thank you." Well, glory to God, Elias. That's wonderful to hear that you are now in the Holy Orthodox Catholic Church. So God bless you, brother, and thank you for your $2 super chat. That's wonderful to hear. And so just double checking, make sure that we don't have. So guys, let me know if anybody requests a saint. Oh, okay. Connacht Writer said Saint Jarlath of Tuam, my town's patron saint. I haven't heard of him, so he didn't come up in my research. So I'll have to look him up. So Connacht Writer, make sure to remind me as we go through. I'm going to look up both of the saints that you mentioned. And Alexandria said Saint Kevin of Glendalough. So I will look that up as well. Okay, so let's begin here. Let me refresh on. Let me throw a Zimbabwe in the upper deck here. Okay. Okay, so the first saint that we have to address is obviously the first martyr, Saint Alban. So here is Saint Alban, the holy protomartyr Alban. Again, and so this site dates him at 304. I saw other websites that dated 209. We're not really sure. I'll go with the 304 because this site, from what I found, was pretty accurate in regards to just cross-researching things that I found. So it says, Saint Alban was the first martyr of the British Isles. He was put to death at Verlamium, now called St. Albans, after him, perhaps during the persecution under the Emperor Diocletian in the year 303 or 304, although some say that he gave his life in the reign of Emperor Stimpius Servus around 209, right? So there's a little bit for why they have a misunderstanding on the dates. According to the story told by Bede, the Venerable Bede, St. Alban sheltered in his house a priest who was fleeing from his persecutors. He was so impressed by the goodness of his guest that he eagerly received his teaching and received baptism. In a few days, it was known that the priest lay concealed in St. Alban's house, and soldiers were sent to seize him. Thereupon, St. Alban put on the priest's clothes and gave him up in his stead to be tried. The judge asked St. Alban, "Of what family are you?" The saint answered, "This is a matter of no concern to you. I would have you know that I am a Christian." The judge persisted, and the saint said, I was called Alban by my parents, and I worship the living and true God, the creator of all things. The judge then said, if you wished to enjoy eternal life, sacrifice the great gods at once. Sacrifice to the great gods? He says, no. The saint replied, you sacrifice to demons who bring no help to answer on the desires of the heart. The reward of such sacrifices is the endless punishment of hell. The judge was angered at the priest's escape and threatened the saint with death if he persisted in forsaking the gods of Rome. He replied firmly that he was a Christian and he would not burn incense to the pagan gods. He was condemned to be beaten and then beheaded. He was led to a place of execution, the hill on which St. Alban's Abbey Church now stands. It is said that by the martyr's prayers, the crowd who accompanied him to his place of execution were enabled to cross the river Columba. This miracle so touched the heart of the executioner that he flung down his sword, threw himself at St. Alban's feet, avowing himself a Christian, and begged to suffer either for him or with him. Another soldier picked up the sword, and the words of Bede, the valiant martyr's head was stricken off, and he received the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. The spring of water gushed forth from the place of the martyr's execution, and it is said at that moment at which the saint's head fell to the ground, the eyes of his executioner fell out from their sockets. Before this spectacle, the governor ordered that the persecution of Christians cease, and that due to honor be paid to the glorious martyrs of Christ. From that time, many sick people found healing through the numerous miracles wrought by St. Alban's tomb, and his veneration spread throughout England and also in parts of Europe. The shrine of St. Alban had lain empty since the destruction of the English monasteries by King Henry VIII. But in 2002, a portion of the martyr's relics was taken from the church of the St. Pantaleon in Cologne, Germany, where they had been preserved for many centuries. These relics now lay once more at the place of the saint's martyrdom. So amazing that we have the relics still of the holy protomartyr St. Alban. Again, whether he's from the second or whether he's from the third or the fourth century, we're not sure. But the fact that his relics still exist is beautiful. So that's the first saint. Again, we have many to get through. We're not going to be able to get through all of them, but here, I'll zoom in so you guys can see. If you see somebody on here, as long as they have a hyperlink, some of them, like, again, Holy Martyr St. Nectan, Celtic Hermit of Devonshire, there's no link here. So if there's a link, we can certainly pull up their page. The other one that I wanted to share was St. Aristobulus, Apostle of Britain. St. Aristobulus, Apostle of the 70, revered as having brought the Orthodox faith to the shores of Britain. Aristobulus of Britannia, full title in Greek. We're not going to read all that. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Is a Jewish Cypriot. So he's from Cyprus. Jewish Cypriot. So he's a Greek Jewish Cypriot saint, numbered among the 70 disciples, along with the apostles of Urban of Macedonia, Stachys, Ampliatus, Apelles, Narcissus of Athens. He assisted St. Andrew. St. Aristobulus was also the brother of the apostle Barnabas. He preached the gospel in Britain and is first bishop, and there reposed peacefully in the Lord. Previous to this, he preached the gospel to the Celts of northern Spain, the Celtiberians. We talked about that in the stream on the history of the Celtic people. His feast days are celebrated on March 16th, on October 31st, and on January 4th with the 70. Such was the apostle Aristobulus, acclaim amongst the Brythonic Celts that a region was named after him. And guys, and I'm going to butcher so much of this pronunciation, so forgive me, all the Celts and all the British people in the chat. Forgive me. Arwistili, which later became a small medieval British kingdom and continues to this day as a district, or more precisely, a kintraff within the country of Powys, Wales. He is possibly mentioned by St. Paul and is identified with Zebedee, the father of St. James of John, Hippolytus, writing in AD 160, the Martyrologies of the Greek Church, state that he preached in Britain and is believed to have been martyred in Wales, although there is no documentation for this. So another, again, great saint. Now, I found an article from an Orthodox parish in England, and they have a few notable saints that they claim are the four patron saints of the British Isles. So before we go forward, I wanted to introduce some of them. So some of you are going to be familiar with like St. Andrew's Cross, the Scottish flag. Why is it that St. Andrew is so revered in the British Isles, even though St. Andrew never made it to the British Isles? Well, here's an explanation. The first one is St. Andrew the Apostle. So the Greek named Andrew was the son of Jonah. He was born in Bethsaida, but lived nearby in Capernaum and became a fisherman. Already a disciple of St. John the Baptist, he met Christ saying, "Behold the Lamb of God." For this reason, he is known as the first called, for he recognized the Savior and was called by him before all others, even before his younger brother Simon, known as Peter, whom Andrew later brought to the Lord. In the Gospels, he is especially mentioned for helping feed the 5,000 in the episode of the Greeks who wished to meet Christ. After Christ's resurrection and ascension, the Apostle Andrew preached in many places. Ancient traditions link him with Thrace, where he consecrated Stachys as the first bishop of the then small town of Byzantium. Then he went on to preach the gospel in the lands along the Danube and around the Black Sea in the south of what is now Ukraine, sailing as far as the site of Kiev and perhaps further still. In Kiev, he raised up a cross and prophesied a Christian future for those lands. Finally, he returned to Epirus and other areas in Greece, where he worked many miracles, ordaining priests and consecrating bishops. Finally, in the year 62, he was arrested, tortured, and crucified at Patras in Greece on a saltire or X-shaped cross, commonly known as St. Andrew's Cross. Here he remained on the cross for 3 days, preaching to crowds before he finally gave up the ghost. By the 6th century, St. Andrew was revered universally. Veneration for him had spread to Western Europe. In England, he was especially honored at Rochester and Hexham. However, even before this, in the 4th century, a saint much honored in Scotland, St. Regulus, had been admonished by an angel to take a small portion of St. Andrew's relics from Patras to an unknown destination in the northwest. St. Regulus kept on traveling until he reached Fife in Scotland. Here he built a church to house the relics of the apostle, which came to be called St. Andrew's. Aha! This became the center of pilgrimage and evangelization. The cross on which St. Andrew had been crucified soon became Scotland's national emblem, and today, as a white saltire on a deep blue background, it forms the Scottish national flag. He is also revered as a patron saint in Greece and Russia. In some recent years, St. Andrew's relics have been returned from Rome to Patras, from where they have been stolen in the Middle Ages. St. Andrew's Day is the 30th of November. Now, another important one is St. Edmund, the King and Martyr. So I'm going to read about him. We're going to skip St. Patrick. Again, if you watch my stream, you already know about him. Then I want to read later St. David on the other site. But so St. Edmund, the King and Martyr. Edmund, correctly Edmund, was born in 841 of devout Christian parents. His name means blessed protection as a child, and he learned the importance of prayer and knew the Psalms by heart. From 855, Edmund's movement had been traced by historians. In that year, we know, for example, of his presence in Hunstanton, Norfolk, at a place now called St. Edmund's Point, where still today may be found St. Edmund's Well in the ruins of St. Edmund's Chapel. From there, his movements have been traced to Attleborough in Norfolk, from where he went to Wessex. On the 5th of November, 855, Edmund took part of a great council of the English nobility in the Wessex capital, Winchester. Here he gathered nobles, allied themselves to fight the growing menace of the pagan Danes and Vikings. Towards the end of 856, the young Prince Edmund was chosen as King of East Anglia at the royal palace of Cassider of St. Edmund outside Norwich. On Christmas Day, 856, aged only 15 years old, he was anointed and crowned King of East Anglia at Birinus, a strategic crossing place of the Suffolk-Essex border. The image we have of Edmund is that of a devout and noble king, so dedicated to the defense and well-being of his people that he did not even marry. He was wise and honorable, humble and devout, bountiful to the poor and to widows, like a father raised up by God to be the defender of his church. However, a great storm broke over the peace-loving kingdom in 865 with a full-scale Danish invasion of East Anglia. Edmund organized resistance as he could to the invasion and was active at Orford near Farmlingham and elsewhere, even outside East Anglia, in order to defend England from the Danes. Thus, in 868, he fought alongside the future King Alfred the Great to deliver Nottingham. In East Anglia, he was also active in building and rebuilding the defensive dike to the east of Cambridge, still known today as St. Edmund's Ditch, and the area of St. Edmund's Fen. In 869, however, the Danes returned to East Anglia with a huge army. They sacked many monasteries, including Ely and Soham. And in the late autumn, Edmund the king gave battle at Thetford in Norfolk. And although inflicting heavy losses, he was forced to retire to Hoxton in North Suffolk. Here he refused Danish offers for peace at a price and remained faithful to Christianity, saying, "It is needful that I alone should die for my people, that the whole nation should not perish." Edmund was seized by the Danes, refusing to defend himself, though he had defended others. The Danes insulted him and beat him. Refusing to renounce his faith, Edmund said, "Living or dead, nothing shall separate me from the love of Christ." Then Edmund was tied to an oak tree, whipped, and had arrows fired at him. Calling on the name of the Savior at the end, Edmund was finally beheaded. It was on Monday, the 20th November, 869. The Danes then left the area, flinging Edmund's head into thick brambles nearby. Later, people who came searching for the head of the martyr were alerted to its presence by the howling of a wolfhound. Edmund was buried at a chapel at Hoxne, and miracles soon followed. The most extraordinary of these was that within the generation, the Danes who had martyred him had accepted Christianity and were themselves venerating their victim, Edmund, as a saint. At the beginning of the 10th century, Edmund's body was moved to the monastic town of Bedrixworth, which then became known as Bury St. Edmunds. In the centuries to come, this became the great shrine of one of the finest and largest monasteries in all England. All the more so, for 5 centuries, Edmund, the noble champion, was to become not only the patron saint of East Anglia, but also the patron saint of all of England. Edmund was indeed a national hero, the light from the east, a blessed protection for East Anglia and all of England. And so I do want to show him, because they have the icon of King Edmund the Martyr on here, so we'll bring that up. So now the next saint that I want to introduce you guys to is Saint Brendan the Navigator, the seafarer. I had not known about this man, and I was blown away by reading about his life, which I want to share with you guys right now. So Saint Brendan the seafarer, here we can see an icon of him. Here is an icon depiction of his travels with his followers. And so let me read it to you guys. He was born in 848 near the port of Tralee in the county Kerry in the province of Munster in the southwest of Ireland. He was baptized at Tubrid near Ardfert by St. Eric. For 5 years, he was educated under St. Ida, the Brigid of Munster, and he completed the studies under St. Eric, who ordained him priest in 512. Between 512 and 530, St. Brendan built monastic cells at Ardfert and at the foot of Mount Brandon. Now, here are the interesting part. This is where it begins. St. Brendan was an early English abbot who sailed westward with his band of sailor monks in a square-rigged cura made of leather over a basketry frame. They were probably searching for the reputed earthly paradise in the Isles of the Blessed. They had astonishing adventures. They reported seeing flaming mountains, most likely volcanoes of Iceland. Continuing westward, they found other landings, one of which was probably Newfoundland, which would make them among the earliest discoverers of America. Amazing. How, again, as Orthodox Christians, how do we not know of that? Although the prevailing winds were against them, they managed to return to Ireland. St. Brendan lives to be 93 and founded several more monasteries. Hey, that one's a little bit difficult to read. There is, however, very little secure information concerning his life, although at least the approximate dates of his birth and death and accounts of some of the events in his life are found in Irish annals and genealogies. The principal works devoted to the saint and his legend are the Life of Brendan and several Latin and Irish versions, and the better known Voyage of St. Brendan, the Abbot, the Navigator. Unfortunately, the lives and the voyage provide little reliable accounts of his life and travels. They do, however, attest to the development of his cult in the centuries after his death. An additional problem is that the precise relationship between the Vita and the Navigatio traditions is uncertain. St. Brendan is chiefly renowned for his legendary journey to the Isles of the Blessed, as described in the 9th century Voyage of St. Brendan the Navigator. Many versions exist that tell of how he set into the Atlantic Ocean with 60 pilgrims. Other versions say 14, plus 3 unbelievers who may have joined at the last minute, searching for the Garden of Eden. One of these companions is said to have been St. Malo, the namesake St. Malo. This would have occurred sometime between 512 and 530 AD, before his travel to the island of Great Britain. On his trip, Brendan is supposed to have seen St. Brendan's Island, a blessed island covered in vegetation. He also encountered a sea monster, an adventure he shared to his contemporary St. Columba. Brendan traveled to Wales, the holy island of Iona, off the west coast of Scotland. Returning to Ireland, he founded a monastery where he spent the rest of his days. He also founded a convent in Annagdown for his sister Brigid. So fascinating saint. Many people who are not familiar with St. Brendan. His activities as a churchman, however, were developed in Western Ireland, where his most important foundations are found. His name is perpetuated in numerous places and names and landmarks among the Irish coast. Again, I've only been to Dublin, and it was only for a short period. So I was blown away. I did not even know about this. All right. So the next one, who do we want to go to next? Let's do St. Piran. So St. Piran, Bishop of Padstow, Cornwall. In Cornwall and Brittany, March 5th is observed as the Feast of St. Piran. Many scholars have identified him with St. Kieran, of those John of Teignmouth, who wrote his medieval biography, ascribed similar stories to the two saints. What is certain is that Piran, let me zoom in a little bit. I can't zoom in too much, or I'm going to cut it off. There we go. Was one of the missionaries which came to Cornwall from Ireland and Wales, and it seems sensible for us merely to record what we know of the saint, who is the most popular of Cornish saints and the patron, if not the duchy, at least of the miners. Perranporth is the traditional place of St. Piran's arrival in true Celtic style on a millstone, according to legend. Inland among the sand dunes lies buried one of the oldest churches in the islands, his chapel at Piran Zabulak. In the Middle Ages, relics of the saint who lay entombed beneath the altar were shown to the pilgrims, and it was, with St. Michael's Mount, the most frequented of holy places. In the 12th century, however, the sands were engulfing the ancient edifice, and the relics had been removed to another church, although the old standing cross remained among the dunes. In 1834, the walls were discovered and excavated, and in 1910, they were encased in a concrete shell to protect them, but they are now again hidden beneath the sand. Preaching of this holy man and the miracles granted through him brought so many people to God. There are numerous dedications to him in Cornwall and in Brittany and South Wales. As you might expect, in Cornwall, the places associated with him are in the region of Fal Estuary, which was the usual embarkation place for Brittany. Paraworthal has a Piran wall, and there, in Brittany, St. Piran is a small place south of St. Brianic. St. Piran is believed to have been interested in stones and collected various mineral-bearing rocks. One particularly large black one he used to hearth for his fire was amazed when it got very hot. A flow of metal came out, white in color and shape of a cross. The appearance of tin not only made him the patron saint of tinners, but also suggested his flag, a silver cross on a black background, which is often used as the standard of Cornwall and symbolizes the Christian gospel. Light out of darkness, good from evil. Piran died at his little hermitage near the beach. His relics were a great draw to pilgrims, but due to inundation by the sands, they were moved inland to the parish church at Piran Zubelau, built to house them. So that is the Saint Piran. Do we have any requests of any particular saints? Saint Kevin, I know. Let's see, is Saint Kevin on here? There's St. Kevin, but they don't have a hyperlink. Let me see if I can pull up let's see if he's on here. Is Kevin on here? There he is. Okay, let's read about. So this is the request of Orthodox Boomer Grandma. She asked about Kevin of Glendalough. Our venerable father, Kevin of Glendalough, wonder worker of Ireland, was the abbot of Glendalough Monastery. He was born in 498 and fell asleep in the Lord in 618 at the age of 120 years old. His feast day is celebrated June 3rd. Let's see. Blackbird's Nest. Let's read about some of his stories. At the age of 7, his parents sent him to a monastery run by St. Petroc in Cornwall. While there, Kevin was kneeling, his arms outstretched in prayer on the first day of Lent in a small hut in the wilderness when a blackbird landed in his palm and proceeded to construct a nest. Kevin remained perfectly still so as not to disturb the bird for the whole of Lent. Kevin was fed by the blackbird with berries and nuts. By the end of Lent, the last blackbird hatchings had flown from the nest, which now lay empty in his hand, and Kevin returned to the monastery for the Paschal celebration. Here, let's read about some of his miracles. The boar and the hounds. It is said that at a hunting party was chasing a boar with their hounds. The boar came upon St. Kevin in a prayer beneath the tree and lay down at his feet. The hounds, when they saw the boar at Kevin's feet, also lay down near the saint, not daring to approach the boar while it was under Kevin's protection. The men decided to ignore these signs and to go ahead and slay the boar. However, a flock of birds landed in the tree, and the hunters took that as a sign and left the boar with Kevin. We also have another female saint that we'll be reading about who has another animal story like that, sheep. One day in his youth, Kevin was tending sheep for his parents when along came a small group of beggars seeking food. Touched by their poverty, Kevin gave them 4 sheep. However, when the sheep were counted at the end of the day, not one was found to be missing. Water to ale. Oh, that's a good Irish saint, right? On a day in autumn, Kevin was working in the kitchen at St. Petroc's monastery. He was busy preparing meals for crop gatherings when a number of pilgrims called and asked him for food. Kevin, filled with compassion, gave them the harvester's dinner. He was rebuked by his superiors for his action. He then told the attendants to fill the ale jars with water and gather together all the bare meat bones. Then they prayed alone, and it is said the water turned to ale and the bones were covered with meat again. The otter that rescued Kevin's breviary from the lake and brought him fish also brought fish to his monastery. One day, a monk, overcome with greed, decided to capture and kill the otter and make a fine pair of gloves out of the pelt. The otter, however, sensed the danger and disappeared, never returning to the monastery again. King Colman's son. King Colman of Fillan had lost to early death, which he blamed on evil spirits. All his sons but one, his youngest. In order to protect him, the king entrusted the baby of St. Kevin's care. Unfortunately, the monastery could not provide the baby, as there were no cows there to give milk for the babe. Kevin, seeing a doe on the monastery grounds, commanded it to nurse the babe prince along with her fawn, which it did. Alas, a she-wolf killed the doe before the child was ready to abandon milk. As a penitence for this murder, the wolf was commanded to provide milk for the baby and the fawn until both were weaned from milk, which the wolf did. So there's a few stories of St. Kevin's life, Kevin of Glendalough. So thank you very much, Alexandria, for that. Really appreciate the request for him. Let's see. Let's go to another one on this list. Actually, let's give another shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs. Let's play a quick one of his videos, guys. Again, the sponsor for today's stream on the lives of various Orthodox saints from the British Isles is Orthodox Audio Labs. Go give him a subscription, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and we're going to play a couple of videos from his channel and give him a bit of a shout out right now. So this is the life of Saint Birinus of Dorchester. So check this out.
The life of our Holy Father among the saints, Saint Birinus, Bishop of Dorchester on Thames and Enlightener of Wessex, as compiled by Vladimir Moss. Our Holy Father Birinus, the Enlightener of Wessex, was of Italian, or according to some accounts, Irish origin. Early in the 7th century, he was sent by the Pope to preach the gospel in the inner parts of England where no teacher had been before. He was consecrated to the episcopate for this task by Archbishop Aserius of Milan. Then he boarded a ship at Genoa for England. However, at that point he suddenly remembered that he had left on the seashore his anti-mention, a portable altar cloth containing relics of the saints, upon which the divine liturgy is celebrated, without which he could not perform his apostolic ministry. But putting his faith in God, he boldly stepped out across the stormy waters, recovered the anti-mention on the seashore, and walked back to the ship, which stood as if immobilized in the middle of the sea. The sailors were astonished to see that his vestments were not even wet. Arriving on the coast of Hampshire in about the year 634, the saint discovered that many of the inhabitants were not Christian, so he decided not to travel further inland. An old woman who had been blind and deaf for several years was told in a vision to go to St. Birinus, and he healed her by making the sign of the cross over her eyes and ears. St. Birinus then traveled to the court of King Cynegils of Wessex, who welcomed him and gave him permission to preach to the people. In 635, King Cynegils and many of his people were baptized by Birinus in Dorchester-on-Thames, which became his episcopal see and the center of his ministry. The king's sponsor at his baptism was none other than the future great king martyr Oswald of Northumbria. Lovely indeed and well-pleasing to God was the relationship between the two kings, says St. Bede. In 636, Birinus baptized King Cynegils' son, Cuichelm, at Dorchester, and in the same year, Cuichelm reposed. In 639, the saint also baptized Cuichelm's son, Cuthred, and stood sponsor for him. But Cynegils' other son, Coenwulf, initially refused baptism and became Christian, not through St. Birinus, but through St. Felix, Bishop of Dunwich, in East Anglia. In 650, St. Birinus reposed and was buried at his episcopal see. In about 690, St. Hedda, Bishop of Winchester, removed his relics to Winchester, and they were translated into a new shrine by Saint Ethelwold, in response to a divine vision on September 4th, 980. The Orthodox Church celebrates the memory of St. Birinus of Dorchester-on-Thames on December 3rd, and the translation of his relics on September 4th. Holy Bishop Birinus, pray to God for us.
So that's a little taste of the Orthodox Audio Labs. Again, he's got tons of videos. So go support our brother promoting the faith. Has great videos over there. Again, this is a little look at his at his channel here. And then he has a whole playlist just of Saints of England's Golden Age. And that's what we're looking at right now. So let me read another saint here. Did we have any requests? I saw over on the Dono chat a shout out to Paisios and Macrina. They threw in $5 and says, "Hey, David, can you look into St. Kevin of Glendalough? My wife and I felt a connection to him ever since we visited the monastery he founded in Wicklow Mountains in Ireland. Many years to you and your fiance." Well, thank you very much, Paisios and Macrina. And you also had the same request as Alexandria did, Orthodox Boomer Grandma. So really appreciate the support and hope you're able to catch that part of the stream where we talked about them. Now let's go to, did anybody else request somebody? Let's see. St. Jarlath of, I don't know if St. Jarlath is on here. Let me see. No, I don't see St. Jarlath of Tamu. Let me pull it in. How'd you spell it? St. Jarlath. St. Jarlath. All right. Oh, here's St. Jarlath. Was an Irish priest and scholar from Connacht, remembered as the founder of the monastic school of Tuam, the archdiocese of Tuam, of which he is the patron saint. No medieval biography of Jarlath is extant, but sources for his life and cult include genealogies, martyrologies, and the lives of the saints, St. Brendan of Clonfert, and a biography compiled by John Colgan in the 17th century. Let's see if we can find... let's read this. So Jarlath appears briefly as a prominent figure in the medieval lives of Brendan of Clonfert. Brendan is said to have visited Connacht to study under the famous Jarlath. One day, when Jarlath was in old age, Brendan advised his mentor to leave the school and to depart in a newly built chariot until its two hind shafts broke, because there would be the place of his resurrection and that of many after him. Because Jarlath acknowledged the divinity and superior wisdom of his pupil, saying, "Take me into thy service forever and ever," he gladly accepted his advice. His travel did not take him very far, as the shafts broke, that is, at Tuam. Jarlath died full of days on the 26th of December, circa 540, aged about 90 years old. In attributing to a leading role to St. Brendan in the foundation of Tuam, the Lives suggests that the see of Tuam was united but was subordinate to Annigdal. Tuam achieved the status as the principal see of Connacht only in 1152 at the Synod of Kells Mellifont, while Annigdal became the independent diocesan seat of the Synod of Dublin in 1192. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you for that, Connacht writer. I did not come across him in the research for today's stream, so very interesting. Let's go back up here to some of the other saints. The Holy Hierarch St. David of Wales. I mean, very important saint. Again, you can see his icon here. We talked a little bit about, or mentioned that he is a very important saint. So let's read about him. He was born in the 6th century in Wales. As a young man, he became a monk and studied for many years as a priest. According to one tradition, he was consecrated bishop by the Patriarch of Jerusalem when David went on pilgrimage there. He worked extensively to spread Christianity in Wales, especially in southwest Wales, in what is now Pembrokeshire. He founded a monastery, Menevia, now St. David's, and he is honored as the bishop of St. David's. David and his monks followed a very austere rule, drinking only water and eating only bread and vegetables, emulating the customs of the monks of the Egyptian desert with a regime of manual labor and study. His monastery became a nursery of saints. Personally, David was a most merciful man, and practiced frequent prostrations. As a favorite ascetic act, he would often immerse himself in cold water. Man, he was doing cold plunging before he was popular, while repeating the Psalms by heart. We know that he attended the church council in Brevi circa 545, and here, by common consent, it is said that he was made archbishop, and his monastery proclaimed the mother church of all Wales. He is said to have founded 12 monasteries, one of which may have been at Glastonbury in Somerset, the place where the apostle Aristobulus of the 70 and righteous Joseph of Arimathea had, by tradition, first preached the gospel in Britain and built the first church centuries before. St. David worked many miracles even during his lifetime. After his repose in about 600, he came to be venerated widely in South Wales, but he was also revered in Ireland, Cornwall, and Brittany. Indeed, some believe that he actually traveled to Cornwall and Brittany and founded monasteries there too. St. David's relics survive to this day and are enshrined in his cathedral at St. David's. St. David's is associated with the daffodil, the national flower of Wales, which is said to have grown around the site at his monastery. The leek, another national symbol of Wales, is said to have grown wild in the same place and to have formed the basis of the diet of St. David and his monks. St. David's feast, the Welsh National Day, falls on the 1st of March. So the Holy Hierarch David of Wales, Bishop of Menevia. Okay. So does anybody have any more requests? I haven't seen anybody request anybody in particular. Cold plunge, exactly. Cold plunge and Psalms. That's the life of the saints. The Venerable Columba abbot. This is a very, very important saint. So I don't know if we'll read all of this, but let's read some of it for sure. He was born in Donegal in December 7th, 521, to noble Irish parents. He became a monk and was soon ordained priest. Tradition asserts that sometime around 560, he became involved in a dispute over the right to copy an edition of the Psalter. The dispute eventually led to the Battle of Coldremy in 561, during which many men were killed. As penance for the death, Columba was ordered to make the same number of new converts as had been killed in the battle. He was also ordered to leave Ireland and move such that he could not see his native country. He traveled to Scotland, where it is reputed he first landed on the southern tip of Kintyre Peninsula near Southend. However, being still inside of his native land, he moved further north up the west coast of Scotland. In 563, he founded a monastery on the island of Iona off the west coast of Scotland, which became the center of his evangelizing mission in Scotland. There are many stories and miracles he performed during his mission to convert the Picts, the people who dwelt in Scotland in those days. And one story of his life in 565, the saint came across a group of Picts who were burying a man killed by a monster that lived in the waters of Loch Ness, and brought the man back to life. In another version, it is said that he saved the man while he was being attacked by the Loch Ness monster, driving away the monster with the sign of the cross. The primary source on the life of St. Columba is the Life of St. Columba, a hagiography by St. Adamnan of Iona. St. Columba is believed to be buried together with St. Patrick and St. Brigid of Kildare in Downpatrick and County Down, deep within the famous Hill of Down. His feast day is June 9th. So, again, very important saint in regards to the conversion of the Picts and the Scots, St. Columba. Let's see, who do we want to go to next? Let's do St. Theodore. So, did we already? No, I don't think we've already read him yet. So, he was the 8th. We talked about, again, the Synod of Whitby. St. Theodore was the 8th Archbishop of Canterbury between 668 and 690, and one of England's great saints. He was a Greek from Tarsus, the home of the Holy Apostle Paul. He was a highly educated monk living in Rome, who was quickly advanced through the clerical ranks and consecrated as Archbishop of Canterbury at the age of 65. Woo! St. Adrian, an African who was the abbot of a monastery near Naples, was sent to assist St. Theodore. St. Theodore arrived in Kent in 669 when he was almost 70 years old. In spite of his age, he was quite energetic, traveling throughout England, founding churches and consecrating bishops to fill the sees which were left vacant by an outbreak of plague. He also created new sees and established a school in Canterbury where Greek was taught. St. Theodore summoned a council of the entire English church in Hertford in 672. Not only was this the first church council in England, it was the first assembly of any kind attended by representatives from all over the country. In 679, he convened another synod of Hatfield to maintain the purity of the Orthodox doctrine and condemn the heresy of monothelitism. St. Theodore fell asleep in the Lord in 690, and his body remained incorrupt for a long time. Under his leadership, the English church became united in a way that the various tribal kingdoms did not. The diocesan structures which he established continue to serve the basis for church administration in England. He was respected for his administrative skill and also for his moral and canonical decisions. The history of the English church and the people of St. Bede gives detailed information about St. Theodore's life and the work as Archbishop of Canterbury. The feast of St. Theodore is kept on the 19th day of September each year. Remember, it was the Synod of Whitby in 668 to 664 was the Synod of Whitby. I'm sorry. So anyways, all right, let's go to, I thought I saw, did somebody send in requests for anybody else? St. Kieran and his holy cow. All right, let's pull that up. Let me find this. I wonder if he's on this one. I don't see it. Okay, so we're gonna pull it up over here. Saint Kieran and his holy cow. I have no idea. Thank you, Connacht Rider. Really appreciate it. I believe he actually is on here. Let me see. I believe that's exactly how it's spelled. Command find seer. What? Oh, I forgot the A. No. All right. Well, we'll just read this. He was one of the 12 apostles of Ireland and the first abbot. Oh, gosh, I can't pronounce this stuff. Clonmacnoise. He is sometimes called Kieran the Younger to distinguish him from the 5th century St. Kieran the Elder, who was bishop of Osridge. His name produced many variant spellings, including Kieran, Quaren. Life. He was born around 516 in Connacht in Ireland. His father was a carpenter and chariot maker. As a boy, Kieran worked as a cattle herder. He was a student of Finnan's at Clondard and in time became a teacher himself. Columba of Iona said that Kieran was a lamp blazing with the light of wisdom. In about 534, he left Clonard for Inishmore, where he studied under Inda of Iran, and ordained him a priest and advised him to build a church and monastery in the middle of Ireland. Later, he traveled to Sinan and Scattery Island. In 544, he finally settled in Clonmacnoise, where he founded the monastery of Clonmacnoise with 10 fellow companions. As abbot, he worked on the first buildings of the monastery. However, he died about 7 months later of a plague in his early 30s. Oh, he died young. His feast day is the 9th of September. Okay, I got to find out about this holy cow. Here we go. Okay, let's read this legend. Various legends are connected with St. Kieran. One of the most famous relates to, as it was, his cow, which he took with him as payment when he went to Clondard and gave milk to all the abbey, which supplied the parchment for the Book of the Dun Cow, one of the oldest and most important Irish literary collections compiled by a Clonmacnois's scribe in 1106. One story tells that he left his copy of the Gospel of St. Matthew to fellow student St. Ninninda. When Finian tested the class, Kieran knew only the first half of the Gospel. The other students laughed and called him Kieran half Matthew. St. Finian silenced them and said, not Kieran half Matthew, but Kieran half Ireland, for he will have half the country and the rest of us will have the other half. Another tale relates that a student, a young fox, would take his writings to his master until it was old enough to eat his satchel. Yet another tale tells of the Irish saints envying him to such a degree that every one of them, apart from St. Columba, prayed for his early death. And finally, he is supposed to have told his followers that upon his death, they were to leave his bones upon the hillside and preserve his spirit rather than his relics. That didn't tell us much about the cow. Did somebody have something specifically on the cow? I didn't see much on the cow, so I apologize. Holy cow, miraculous animals. I don't know. I'm not sure, Connacht Rider. Sorry about that if I missed something, but it looked like somebody else requested. Colamark throws in $5, says St. Colman McDowell. St. Colman McDowell. Wonder if he's on here. Man, fine. Cole. Nope. Okay. Let me pull that up. St. Colman Mac. I'm not seeing it, Colmark. Let me see if he's on here. St. Colman of Lindisfarne. I'm not seeing of MacDowell. I am not finding much for him. I apologize. Is this it? Irish Saint, Colamark, is this it? Let me know in the chat. One of several Irish saints, bishop and patron of Kilmacdow. He lived for many years as a hermit, where he built 2 churches, both forming the present group of ruins in Kilmurvie. Thence he sought greater seclusion in the woods of Burin in 592, and at length in 610 founded a monastery which became the center of the tribal diocese of Aidhene, practically coexistent with the present see of Kilmacdow. Although the martyrology of Donegal assigns the feast day to February 2nd, yet the weight of evidence in the tradition of the diocese point to October 29th, on which the festival has been kept from time immemorial, and which is a fixed recipe by Pope Benedict in 747. Okay, he said he spelt it wrong. All right. Well, let's try the way that you spell it. St. Colman Mac. Here we go. Okay, this is what you meant, Colmark. Was born at Croker, County Galloway, Ireland, the son of an Irish chieftain. He initially lived as a recluse, living in prayer and prolonged fasting, first on Innismore, then in a cave at the Burin in County Clare, with his relative King Geir of Connacht. He founded the monastery. Okay, so we were hitting on the same guy. He has been confused with St. Colman of Temple Shanbo, who is from Connacht and lived somewhat earlier. He was educated by St. Inda's monastery on Inishmore, and he lived there as a hermit. He built a church. seeking greater solitude. Around 590, he moved to Burin, which was then covered in forest, accompanied by a servant. The hermitage is located in Townland in Kieran, part of the parish of Kieran. Okay. All right, so I think we hit on that. Thank you very much, Colomark, for the support. Really appreciate the $5 super chat. Connacht Writer says, Crispy requests St. Colmasil. Okay. I believe he's on here. Maybe not. Well, didn't we already read about Saint Columba right here, the abbot of Iona. Which one is he referring to? We already did the Venerable St. Columba, abbot of Iona. Is there another one, Connacht Writer? Because we've already done him. So I think we've already hit him, but I appreciate it. Saint Fillan. Okay. No. See if he's on here. F. Nope. Okay, let's see what the AI got us. Saint Fillan, also known as Saint Folin, lived in the 8th century. His exact birth and dates are unknown, but it is believed that he was born around 750 AD. He hailed from Ireland, a land rich in religious history and legend, monastic life and travels. Fillan studied at Tagmon Abbey in Ireland before traveling to Scotland, where he settled at Strathfillan. The name Fillan likely means little wolf in Irish. Hermit and abbot, Fillan became a monk in his youth and accompanied his mother, Saint Kentigner, from Ireland to Scotland. He lived as a hermit near St. Andrew's Monastery for many years before being elected abbot. He later resigned and resumed the eremitical life of Glendalough, Perthshire, where he built a church and was renowned for his miracles. His legacy extends to Scotland, where a healing well and a rock formation known as St. Fillan's Seat are attributed to him. These sites are located near Kilmacolm in Renfrewshire. Okay, very cool. I was not aware of him, so thank you very much, IN, for the request. Appreciate that. Let me double check, make sure we don't have any more requests by anybody before we move on. I don't see any. So thank you very much, In, for that. Really appreciate it. Obviously, we can't talk about all these saints without talking about the Venerable Bede. Now, I don't want to read his whole section here, but Bede is the father of English history. And so the Venerable Bede, almost everything that is known about Bede's life is contained in the last chapter of his Historia Ecclesiastica, the history of the church in England. It was completed in about 731, and Bede implies that he was then in his 59th year, which would give a likely birth date at about 672 to 673. A minor source of information is the letter by his disciple Cuthbert, who we haven't read about yet, which relates Bede's death. Cuthbert is probably the same person as the later abbot of Wearmouth Jarrow, but is not entirely sure. Bede in the Historia gives his birthplace as on the islands of this monastery. He was referring to the twinned monasteries of Wearmouth and Jarrow near modern-day Sunderland and Newcastle, respectively. Both have been claimed as his birthplace, and there's also a tradition that he was born at Moncton, 2 miles from the monastery of Jarrow. Bede says nothing of his origins, but his connections with men of noble ancestry suggest that his own family was well-to-do. Bede's first abbot was Benedict Biscop, and the names Biscop and Beda both appear in a king list of kings of Lindsey from around 800, further suggesting Bede came from a noble family. So Bede was a teacher as well as a writer. He enjoyed music, and he was said to be accomplished as a singer and a reciter of poetry in the vernacular. In 708, a number of monks at Hexham accused Bede of heresy because of his work De Temporibus offered a different chronology of the 6 ages of the world theory than the one commonly accepted by theologians. The accusation occurred in front of the bishop of Hexham at the time, Wilfrid, who was present at a feast when some drunken monks made the accusation. Wilfrid did not respond to the accusation, but a monk present relayed the episode to Bede, who replied within 5 days to the monk, writing a letter setting forth his defense and asking the letter to be read to Wilfrid also. Bede had another brush with Wilfrid, for the historian himself says that he met with Wilfrid sometime between 706 and 709 and discussed Ethelthryth and the abbess of Ely. Wilfrid had been present at the exhumation of her body in 695, and Bede questioned the bishop about the exact circumstances of the body and asked for more details of her life, as Wilfrid had been her advisor. Anyways, Bede's remains have been transferred to Durham Cathedral in the 11th century. His tomb there was looted in 1541 by the contents were probably reinterred in the Galilee Chapel at the cathedral. So this is a prayer for St. Bede. By the intercession of thy blessed confessor Bede, fill us with joy, our Lord, our God, for thou hast granted us to progress by his fatherly teachings and to rejoice in his blessed solemn feast. Through our Lord Jesus Christ, thy Son, who liveth and reigneth with thee in unity of the Holy Spirit, God, through all the ages of ages. Amen. Okay. So let's go back and play one more video from Orthodox Audio Labs. Again, the sponsor for today's stream. Shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs. Which saint video do you guys want to watch? So we got Life of St. Oswald. That's another great saint. St. Eanswida, the abbess of Folkestone. I think somebody requested that. Let's read this one. Or let's listen to this one, rather.
Eanswida, abbess of Folkestone. As compiled by Vladimir Moss, our Holy Mother Eanswida was the only daughter of the pagan King Eadbald of Kent and the Christian Queen Emma, daughter of the King of the Franks. She was probably born around 614. From early childhood, she renounced worldly pomp and sought to serve God alone. However, her father had other designs for her and urged her to marry, but Eanswida firmly stuck to her purpose of becoming a nun. She told her father that if he was recommending to her an everlasting love and an immortal spouse, the fruit of marriage with whom would, while preserving her virginity, bring her endless joy, then she would willingly comply with his counsel. If, on the other hand, he was offering her a partnership in which love would be mingled with dislike, a human husband, children who would die, and all this at the cost of her virginity, then even the advice of her father would tell her to choose the better thing, unless he wished to strip himself of the title of father. For Mary, she went on, hath chosen the better part, which shall not be taken from her. Since therefore in human affairs the universal law of death prevails, I thirst for the embrace of a heavenly and immortal spouse. For him do I preserve the flower of my virginity. If I love him, I am chaste. If I touch him, I am pure. If I embrace him, I am a virgin. For the service of a spouse such as this, I beseech you, Father, to build me a house of prayer. And so, finally persuaded, King Eanbald built a church dedicated to Sts. Peter and Paul within Folkestone Fortress, and close to it, a monastery with its own church for Eanswida. While the monastery was in the process of being built, a pagan Northumbrian prince came in person to ask for the hand of the Holy Virgin in marriage. Her father now wavered and tried once more to persuade her to accept such a favorable offer. However, Eanswida's mind was made up, and she thought of an excellent expedient whereby she might get rid of the unwelcome suitor. She took him to the unfinished building and stopped before a beam that was too short for the place it was required to fill. "This noble prince," she said, "earnestly desires to have me, the handmaid of Christ, for his companion. He seeks me for his bride. Oh, what a foolish exchange! What hateful stupidity! What an unbearable loss! If I were to exchange heavenly things for earthly, everlasting joys for those which pass. Nevertheless, though this man is mortal and earthly, I will take him for husband, if, through the power of his God, he can by prayer make this piece of wood as long as is required. If he cannot, then let him leave me alone." The prince was quite satisfied with this proposal, but though he prayed long to each of his gods in turn, it was of no avail, and covered with confusion, he went away. St. Eanswide then approached the beam, and at her prayer it immediately extended itself to the required length. St. Eanswith's monastery was founded, according to tradition, in 630, being probably the earliest convent in Anglo-Saxon England. Eanswith was not immediately made abbess, but a little later. Now it happened that water had to be carried from a spring a long way from the monastery. Abbess Eanswide prayed, went to the spring, and, striking the rock with her crozier, bade the water follow her. This it did, uphill and over rocks and streams, until it arrived at her monastery. From that time on, the spring plentifully supplied the nuns with water. The Holy Virgin performed other miracles both before and after her death, including the restoring of sight to a blind woman and the release of a man possessed by a demon. She died very young, probably on August 31st, 640, after only 10 years of monastic life. The monastery was probably destroyed in the 9th century. In 927, King Athelstan gave the land on which it had been situated to the monks of Christ Church, Canterbury, calling it the place where there was once a monastery and abbey of holy virgins, and where St. Eanswide was buried. On September 12th, 1138, the relics of the saint were again translated to the Church of St. Mary and Eanswide. On June 17th, 1885, her relics were discovered in a 12th century reliquary in the chancel wall of the church.
So again, shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs. If you want to guys watch more, he's got great videos. Again, some are much longer, so we're not going to share all those. But if you want to watch some of these, especially my favorite one was St. Oswald, King Martyr of Northumbria. Go check out his videos, Orthodox Audio Labs on YouTube, and subscribe. I want to read a few more, and let me know, guys, if you have any more requests. Obviously, we can't get out of here without reading about St. Brigid of Kildare. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you guys, just a quick introduction to it. So, St. Brigid, the Mary of the Gale, was born around 450, about 2 miles from Dundalk in County Louth in Ulster. According to tradition, her father was a pagan, and her mother was Broseka, one of his slaves. Whether she was raised a Christian or converted in 468, some accounts say it is unknown, but she inspired by the preaching of St. Patrick from the early age. The miracles performed by St. Brigid are too numerous to relate here, but perhaps one story will suffice. One evening, the holy abbess was sitting with a blind nun, Dara. From the sunset to sunrise, they spoke of the joys of the kingdom of heaven, and with the love of Christ, losing all track of time, St. Brigid was struck by the beauty of the earth and sky in the morning light. Realizing that Sister Dara was unable to appreciate this beauty, she became very sad. When she prayed and made the sign of the cross over Dara's eyes, all at once the blind nun's eyes were open, and she saw the sun in the east, the trees and the flowers sparkling with dew. She looked for a while, then turned to St. Brigid and said, "Close my eyes again, dear mother. For when the world is visible to the eyes, then God is seen less clearly by the soul." St. Brigid prayed again, and Dara became blinded once more. St. Brigid fell asleep in the Lord in the year 523 on February 1st after receiving Holy Communion from St. Ninenda. She was buried at Kildare, but her relics were transferred to Downpatrick during the Viking invasions. It is believed that she was buried in the same grave with St. Patrick and St. Columba of Iona. In the late 13th century, her head was brought to Portugal by 3 Irish knights on their way to fight in the Holy Land. They left this holy relic in the parish church of Lemire, about 3 miles from Lisbon. Portions of the relic were brought back to Ireland in 1929 and placed in a new church of St. Brigid in Dublin. So a very important, probably the most famous of the female saints, although there's plenty. I wanted to actually read maybe a few of the female saints. There was one that I thought was very fascinating. Where is her? Dymphna. I want to find her. Dymphna. Command find. Here we go. So check this is very interesting. She's actually the holy saint of very, very fascinating story. I mean, not ideal. Her dad wants to commit incest. I know. But she was a glorious virgin martyr, Dymphna. And she was a 7th century Celtic saint who died circa 650. The church commemorates her feast day on May 15th, and she is the patron saint of those who suffer from mental illnesses and nervous system disorders, epileptics, mental health professionals, incest victims, and runaways. So let me, again, read you a little bit of her story. We're not going to read the whole thing, but you can see, again, photos that relate to her story. Her long title, popularly given to the island evangelized by St. Patrick, which nestles in the blue waters of the Atlantic. So Dymphna was born in the 7th century when Ireland was almost universally Orthodox, yet strange to say that her father was a petty king, Oriel, and was a pagan. Her mother, a descendant of a noble family, was on the other hand a devout Christian. She was remarkable both for her piety and her great beauty. Dymphna was, like her mother, a paragon of beauty and a most sweet and winning child, the jewel of her home. Every affection and attention was lavished upon her from birth. Heaven, too, favored the child with special graces. Dymphna was early placed under the care and tutelage of a pious Christian woman who prepared her for baptism, which was conferred by the saintly priest, Father Garabrand. The later seems to have been a member of the household and later taught little Dymphna her letters along with the truth of the religion. Dymphna was a bright and eager pupil and advanced rapidly in wisdom and grace. When still very young, Dymphna, like many other noble Irish maidens before her, being filled with fervor and love for Christ, chose him, Christ, for her divine spouse and consecrated her virginity to him by the Blessed Mother to vow of chastity. It was not long, however, that an unexpected cloud overshadowed the happy childhood of a beautiful girl. She lost her good mother by death. Many of the secret tears she shed over the bereavement, but at the same time she found great comfort in the divine faith, which, though she was still of a tender age, already had taken deep root. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. Dymphna's father, again, the pagan king, too, greatly mourned his deceased wife and for a long time continued to prostrate with grief. At length, he was persuaded by his counselors to seek solace in a second marriage. So he commissioned certain ones of his court to seek out for him a lady who would be like his first spouse in beauty and character. Now, again, she was a pious, beautiful Christian woman, and he was not. After visiting many countries in vain, the messengers returned, saying that they could find no one so charming and amiable as his own lovely daughter, Dymphna. Giving ear to their base suggestion, the king conceived the evil design of marrying Dymphna, his own daughter. With persuasive and flattering words, he manifested his purpose to her. Dymphna, as may be expected, was greatly horrified at the suggestion and asked for a period of 40 days to consider the proposal. She immediately betook herself to Father Garabrand, who advised her to flee from her native country, and since the danger was imminent, he urged her to make no delay. With all speed, therefore, she set out for the continent, accompanied by Father Garabrand, the court jester, and his wife. After a favorable passage, they arrived at a coast near the present city of Antwerp. Having stopped for a short rest, they resumed their journey and came to a little village named Giel. Here, they were hospitably received and began to make plans for establishing their future abode at this place. The king, in the meantime, having discovered Dymphna's flight, was fearfully angry and immediately set out with his followers in search for the fugitives. At some time, they were traced to Belgium, and their place of refuge was located. At first, Dymphna's father tried to persuade her to return with him, but Father Gerbrand sternly rebuked him for his wicked intentions, whereupon he gave orders that Father Gerbrand should be put to death. Without delay, his wicked retainers laid violent hands upon the priest and struck him on the neck with a sword. With one blow of the steel, the head of the severed father, or his head severed from the shoulders, and another glorious martyr went to join the illustrious heroes of Christ's kingdom. Further attempts on the part of Dymphna's father to induce her to return to him proved fruitless. With undaunted courage, she spurned his enticing promises and scorned his cruel threats. Infuriated by her resistance, the father drew a dagger from his belt, and he himself struck off the head of his own child. Recommending her soul to the mercy of God, the Holy Virgin fell prostrate at the feet of her insanely ravaging father. Thus, the glorious crown of martyrdom was accorded to Saint Dymphna in the 15th year of age. And on the 15th day of May, between 620 and 640, the day of her death has been assigned as a feast day. The records of Dymphna's life and death say that the bodies of the two martyred saints lie on the ground for quite some time after their death, until the inhabitants of Gil removed them from a cave, which was the customary manner of the internment in that part of the world at the time. But several years had elapsed. The villagers, recalling their holy deaths, decided to give their bodies a more suitable burial. When the workmen removed the heap of black earth at the cave entrance, great was their astonishment to find two brilliantly beautiful tombs, whiter than snow, which were carved from stone, as if by the hands of an angel. When the coffin of Saint Dymphna was opened, there was found laying on her breast a red tile bearing the inscription, "Here lies the Holy Virgin and Martyr Dymphna." The remains of the saint were placed in a small church. Later, necessity obliged the erection of the magnificent Church of Saint Dymphna, which now stands on the site where the bodies were first buried. Saint Dymphna's relics repose there in a beautiful golden reliquary. And here is the church. So many miracles are associated with her relics and at this church as well. But fascinating saint that, again, I was not familiar with, the Saint Dymphna, Virgin Martyr of Ireland. Again, more beautiful than all the rest. A devoted virgin to Christ. So very, very interesting story there. I wasn't sure if you guys had been familiar with them or not. The Venerable Hilda, she has one of the female saints has a really interesting story that I found about a rabbit. Is it Saint Ida? No. Here we go. Does anybody have any more requests, by the way? The goal was to try to get so much in before the 2-hour mark. We're already a little bit past, but no, he doesn't have one. St. Oswald, Martyr King. Again, another great saint of Northumbria. If you're not familiar, go check him out. On the eve of battle, at St. Columba's, as St. Columba's biographer, St. Edmund writes, while King Oswald, after pitching his camp in readiness for the battle, was sleeping on a pillow in his tent, he saw St. Columba in a vision, beaming with angelic brightness, and the figure so majestic that his head seemed to touch the clouds. The blessed man, having announced his name to the king, stood in the midst of the camp and covered it all with a brilliant garment, except at one small distant point. And at the same time, he uttered those words which the Lord spake to Joshua, the son of Nun, before the passage of the Jordan, after Moses' death, saying, be strong and be good of courage. Behold, I shall be with thee. Then St. Columba, having said these words to the king in the vision, added, march out this following night from your camp to battle. For on this occasion the Lord has granted to me that your foes shall be put to flight, that your enemy, Cartwallon, shall be delivered into your hands, and that after the battle you shall return in triumph. The king, awakening at these words, assembled his council and related the vision, at which they were all encouraged. So the whole people promised that after their return from war, they would believe and be baptized. For up to that time, all that Saxon land had been wrapped in darkness of paganism and ignorance, with the exception of King Oswald and the 12 men who had been baptized with him during the exile among the Scots. So again, he and his brother, he was forced to flee with his 6 brothers and sister Ebba to exile in Scotland despite being the king. And they then again returned in triumph and actually spread Christianity. So that is St. Oswald, King Martyr of Northumbria, another great saint. Again, check out, let me share this link again, guys. Definitely check out this page. It has great, great stories, and I love that you can see all the icons. Here's St. Bertram, king and hermit. I mentioned him earlier. Bertram was a king of Mercia. He's said to have traveled to Ireland in order to discern his feeling of having religious calling. However, when he arrived to Ireland, he fell in love and eloped with a beautiful princess who he brought back to Mercia with him while she was pregnant with child. They lived a nomadic life, with a baby being said to have been born in the shelter of the forest near the present-day Stafford. Tragically, while Bertram was away hunting for food for them, some of the wolves came upon their camp, killing both his beloved wife and their infant child. Overcome with grief and once again turned to God, renouncing his royal heritage, he sought to now live a life of prayer. It is reported that many pagans from the area were converted to Christianity by the example he gave in his new life. Without revealing his royal lineage, he presumably in disguise, Bertram approached the court of Mercia, asking for and being granted land near modern-day Stratford, where he could build a hermitage. Meanwhile, a new king took the throne of Mercia, but not being a religious man, he demanded back the land on which the hermitage stood. It was decided to settle the matter by a man-to-man combat. Bertram, obviously not wanting himself to be fighting, being now a religious and peaceable man, prayed that someone might come forward to fight for the hermitage. Somewhat surprisingly, a dwarf came forward offering to fight, but Bertram, remembering the story of David and Goliath, readily accepted the dwarf's offer, which was just as well the hermitage kept its land. Another story is told about Bertram having dedicated his life to Christ. He sought out the devil who tried to tempt the saint to turn some stones into bread. Bertram, though, prayed that some bread would instead be turned to stones. In 1516, it was said that those same stones were still to be found in the church of Bartomely near Audley in present-day Cheshire. Being known in the area as a wise and holy man, many sought out his spiritual advice. As with most holy men and women, though constantly beset by people and needing to refresh his soul, he sought solitude in a cave near what is now the village of Ilmham in Staffordshire, where he lived until his death. And so here's the church, and here's the tomb of St. Bertram with cover. So, again, fascinating stuff. There was another king that I wanted to share with you guys. Anyways, all these, again, check out all these kings. King Oswald, martyr king of Northumbria. King Edmund, martyr king of East Anglia. King Edwin, or St. Edwin, martyr and king of Northumbria. St. Oswin, martyr, king of Northumbria. St. Edward, the Passion Bearer, king of England. Another great saint. So I know I'm missing one that I wanted to share with you guys, but I can't remember which one. I read so many of these, I'm getting their stories mixed up. Anyways, does anybody have any more requests? I'll take any more requests before we hop off here. Again, major shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs, guys. Go follow his YouTube channel. Has great content. Again, informing about the history of British Isles saints and other stuff as well. Okay, King Attila throws in $5 and he says, "How about Saint Guthric of Crowland?" Okay, let's find him. Saint Guthric of Colman. See if he's on here. There he is. Okay, so this is a request by King Attila. Thank you very much, King Attila, for the $5 super chat. Man, there's not much here. Our venerable and God-bearing father, Guthric of Crowland, was a hermit in the late 7th and early 8th centuries in Anglo-Saxon England. Born a prince of some rank, after spending time as a soldier, he forsook the world and took up a moor, draining it and battling demons. His feast day is celebrated on April 11th, the commemoration of the translation of his relics on August 30th. Let me see if he's on here. Command find Guth. Oh, here he is. Wonder Worker, Saint of the East, 714. Unfortunately, there's no hyperlink. So thank you very much, King Attila, for the $5 super chat for that. Really appreciate it. But I'm not seeing any more requests. Gosh, there was one female saint that I cannot remember, but there was a great story about her. But anyways, I don't want to belabor the point. We've hit multiple of these saints. So anywho, I'm going to kind of call that a stream. We're already at the 2.5 hour mark. The goal was 2 hours. So again, I always dive into this stuff and I love it. And this was a great stream topic by Orthodox Audio Labs. Again, major thank you to him. Make sure you guys go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Again, it's Orthodox Audio Labs. Let me share that link with everybody here. Orthodox Audio Labs. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. And I will be back. We need to do a 30,000 celebration stream. So I think I may do that Sunday evening and try to get as many guys on the stream as possible. Thank you very much. Caravaggio said, congrats on 30K DPH. Well, thank you very much, Caravaggio. Really appreciate that, brother. Appreciate the support. I mean, obviously, it's all due to you guys. So I really appreciate everybody's support for the channel. But anyways, again, major shout out to Orthodox Audio Labs for today's sponsor. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel, support our brother and promoting the lives of various British Isle saints. And I will see you all potentially tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday. In the next few days, I need to do a celebration stream. So I need to reach out to some of the usual suspects and see if they'll be able to hop on the stream for a little bit. But anyways, guys, really appreciate you all. God bless you. And I hope this was beneficial in sort of introducing some of these great British Isle saints. And that, again, use that link that I shared with you. If you want to read any of the lives, go right here. And I'll share that now. Go right here, and they have all the icons if they're available. And then here is the list, according to Orthodox Wiki, of saints that they have, British Isle saints. So anyways, I appreciate it. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next one. As always, until next time, God bless.